So we've been talking about the 5 C's. On the first video, we focused on communication. But today, I want to focus on consistency. Yes, when we have good communication, as we talked about to check up on them emotionally, we need to make sure we're consistent in checking up with them. We want to not just check up when they're only having a tough time, but check up with them, weekly, daily, throughout the day. How's it going? So that only the first time you've ever communicated with them was not that when that situation happened, but keeping that consistent relationship going back and forth is going to be very critical. The other part of consistency, connecting back to communication, was the idea of making sure on the academic realm, right? The idea of keeping consistently following up with them, consistently following up with their teachers, consistently following up with their grades, with their homework assignments, with their projects, and having that communication with them, being consistent goes a long way. Consistency with communication, what we had talked about, was character. And whatever we want them to accomplish and behave, be consistent about reminding them of that behavior is so important. But let's talk about consistency in a few things. First and foremost, the idea of just making sure sleep schedule. At a young age, if you start that sleep schedule, and I've seen some parents had at 8 o'clock, and when they're consistent with it, you gotta lie down 7:30, by 8 o'clock you gotta go to sleep. Before you go to sleep, you have to read a book. And if you start that habit when they're young, at 3, 4, 5, 6, and that goes on for several years, they're going to have a habit later. What you bring into the child, encourage to the child, teach that child, make it a routine in their child's life when they're young until the age of 9 or 10, there's a high chance to keep that habit, and hopefully good habits. So that sleep schedule of you're going to go to sleep at this time, you're going to wake up at this time, and having that, and as they get older, you're going to have to change it up. You can't keep the same sleep schedule when they're in 3rd grade or in kindergarten, when they're in middle school, high school. It's going to change. But making sure that they get their 8 hours, get their 9 hours, making sure that they're ready for school, and having even on the weekends and say, okay, weekends you can sleep in, but it still has to be a limit, is so important. That way it doesn't, because if a child doesn't get their sleep schedule and they don't have a routine, it's going to affect them. And when they're tired, it's going to affect them academically, it's going to affect them emotionally, it can affect them physically. So having that one consistency of routine and sleep schedule is so important. Number 2 is that you want to also make sure is that when they have their study time, like in school, it's very important. So when they go to school and they come back, making sure there's a set time to study and say, look, you have from 6 to 7 o'clock is going to be your study time when they're in lower grades. Or it's going to be, hey, from this hour to this hour. Your study time, you have to first do your homework before you could play. Or you could play, then do your homework. But you have to block this time off where there's no other social media playing on the side, TV, radio, whatever they need. Now, as they get older, sometimes they might have some background noise or music, but please make sure that if you could keep that consistency in their study habits of a timing and how much time it takes and making sure that they get things done and being organized and following up with them and keep that and not saying, well, all right, I'm gonna do it on the weekend, I'll get it done. But when you build that, and it has to start when they're young, building those habits, and if suppose you didn't, now they're in middle school, it will take some time, but you have to be like, hey, right now, let's go. I'm going to help you. We're all going to read at this time. We're all going to do our work right now. I'm doing my work for home or whatever, my personal studies. As you do your studies, that helps them, at least gets them going for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or sometimes even time it if they're like, there's so much homework, it takes me too long, because maybe your child has some struggles in doing their work, maybe in a specific subject. Putting time limits on it and say, look, you got 45 minutes, I need you to just focus. Or 30 minutes, and build on that, and that way they could see that what they could accomplish, because sometimes in their mind they're thinking they're longer than they really are. So that was number 2. Number 3, which is very important, that even consistency of their hygiene. When they have their hygiene and making sure they're combing their hair, it is so important for them that you have to have that habit of, hey, when they're young, they wake up, they change their clothes, they brush their teeth, they comb their hair. And if you have that habit when they're preschool, pre-K, kindergarten, that when you go to school, you gotta look good, you gotta dress good. And a lot of people say, right, if you dress good, you feel good. You feel good, you're gonna play good, or you're just gonna accomplish a lot more. And so it's so important that you have that consistency in saying, look, brushing your teeth, washing your face, taking care of your bed and folding your clothes. Having those habits now, it's only going to benefit them later. But if you don't have that and try to build those later, it's going to affect them. And even if they get older or if they get married, then it's going to affect them more because they're like, now someone else has to deal with some of that mess, right? So having those habits of that, from that sleep schedule that we just had talked about, from their study time, and even their hygiene of cleaning their clothes, changing their socks, and having those things and helping them and reminding them, hey, did you do this? Did you change your undergarments? Did you change your socks? Have you taken a shower? Taking showers, even when they're young. Don't try to make it once a week, 2-3 times a week. Getting them a habit, so by the time they get older and now they sweat more and they're gonna smell more, they have these good hygiene habits. Number 4 is even clothing, right? To taking care of your clothes, what proper clothing, what you want them to wear at school, what you want them to wear at events. If you give them that opportunity of having that consistency, hey, look, this is how at school, yes, when they get older, they're gonna have their own style, no doubt about it, but they're gonna be parameters. Whatever your parameters are, if that is just as a family, culturally, or it could be religiously, whatever those are, building those when they're young and consistency, reminding them and showing them, and you yourself following them and going through, is going to help them keep that consistent habit of even clothing. So that was number 4. Number 5 is also social time. You want to make sure that every day kids, they like to have fun. And you want to make sure they have that opportunity to have social time, to hang out with their friends, playing with their friends, going out to play. Nothing wrong with it. We want that to happen. And having consistent time to say, look, you're going to have 1 hour to go outside and play in social time, social time, and talking to your friends or with your individuals. And I'm talking about social as kind of physically meeting or talking to individuals will go a long way, right? And some of us right now, I know this video, if you see it 2 years ago, but right now we're in a situation called COVID, right? And now people are not able to go outside and hang out. So having a specific Zoom time for they could talk to other individuals and meet with other individuals. And I know parents, you're like, well, they're socially with me. As they get older, they want to be around other individuals. And it's so important to make sure that social time, your consistency, what kind of individuals they are, who their friends are going to be very important. So keep that in mind, even with socially. The other part of being consistent is even their playtime. So that means physical activities, right? Social time is maybe they're just talking, hanging out, but especially for boys and girls, and especially for young ladies, that to go out and act, especially in the culture I grew up, sometimes the girls didn't give them that opportunity to play as the boys. Everyone needs that opportunity to physically get their exercise in 20-30 minutes. If that means it's playing basketball, if it's tennis, if it's volleyball, if it's just running outside, if it's outdoors, if it's biking, whatever things that people have, it is so important that what they enjoy, where they get their blood flowing, and it's very important in getting some of that sunshine. So having a certain time, say when you come in, especially when they're young, here's your time to play. Here's your time to now study. And having that 3-4 days, 3 through 4 times in a week, they get out. Because playtime, I know right now is a lot of times just the video games. I'm talking about physically moving around. Now the next consistency is entertainment. So they want to have that social media. Right now, an average child has 4 hours of screen time a day. 4 hours, times that by 7, that's 28 hours. Almost just a day goes on TV, phone, internet, social media, Snapchat, all these different things. So it's so important to even putting consistency and putting some limits and saying, okay, at this time, this is the time you can watch this, and putting parameters on them. And at certain times, I don't think a child needs to have some of these other apps, social apps in 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade. Maybe at middle school, you add one app. Then maybe in high school, you add another app. Because you just cannot give them all this, because they are going to have a hard time to be consistent and learn how to socially police themselves. So you as a parent being consistent about these specific things and the timings and how much and when they can, Monday through Friday, no screen time. When my kids grew up, just Monday through Thursday, they couldn't watch TV, right? They maybe had 1 hour after a while and say you could pick and choose and we'll watch, but the middle school, about weekend, they had more. But as they get older, they might change. But having these certain habits when they're young gives them the work ethic that they need, so having control of that. The other one is family time, because you don't want kids to, especially as they get older, that all their social time, entertainment time, play times with their friends, You also, as a family, need to make time. Mom and dad need to make time for themselves. Mom and dad need to make time for the kids. Having some time where they get together, hang out, play, just talk, conversation, watch a game, whatever it is, or whatever that you guys enjoy. If it's from hiking, if it's watching TV, or whatever, every family has what connects them. So I'm making sure that at least once or twice to maybe every day, it all depends on your schedule, but whatever that is, to make it consistent, so you keep on doing that, that will be very important. And then the last one, for many individuals, you might have the consistency of character or faith or spirituality. If that is important, then you want to make sure you make that time. If it's a certain day that they have to go to a center or a religious place for them for prayers or to learn about their faith, you make that very important and you go ahead and make that. If it's a good character and whatever those things are, they need to see it. They need to see that habit in you, consistency behavior, things that you want them to really inculcate in them. You need to consistently remind them all the time. This is how when you talk to your neighbors, this is how it is. When you get mad, this is how you should behave. When you're playing, hey, I need you to make sure you speak this way, not the language used. Hey, this is the kind of music you can listen to. This is the TV shows you could have. Whatever the moral compass that you want to develop in them has to start when they're young, and it constantly has to keep on going. You can't say now 12, 13, they're going to make their own decisions. No, you still have a right as a parent to constantly remind them, what you think is important, and remind them that this is important to them, and then bring that into them and inculcate that through your actions, by your words, by others that you want them to be exposed to. So hopefully, keeping these things in mind with consistency. Thank you so much.
We are honored to say this video is sponsored by Amana Mutual Funds. Amana Mutual Funds favors companies with low price-to-earnings multiples, strong balance sheets, and proven businesses. They follow a value-oriented approach consistent with Islamic finance principles. Start investing in a pure way today with Amana Mutual Funds.